My name is Javlon Rakhmatullayev. I used to be a cook. Not a chef in a restaurant, not a YouTube celebrity, just a cook in a small Uzbek cafe in Ljubljana. We cooked samsa, lagman, pilaf for the whole area. There, in the cafe, there was a smell of garlic, fried meat, heat, sweat, sometimes cheap tobacco, when Asher smoked in the back room again. And then everything changed. I remember that day. It was an ordinary evening. I was wiping tables. Asher was putting boxes of carrots in the fridge. The radio was crackling. Someone was talking about an accident in the north of Moscow, something about a leak, about a cordon. We didn't pay attention. We were running out of rice. Asher was cursing that the buyer had screwed everything up again. An hour later, I was already walking home, happy, tired, with a bag of food for the neighbors. I was still living in a dormitory then. 15 people to one shower and the smell of boiled cabbage in the hallway. We were all from everywhere. Samarkand, Dushanbe, Tashkent, Fergana. Everyone survived as best they could, and then the first scream rang out. Not human, not like anything else. I turned around and saw a guy in a tracksuit grabbing a passerby by the neck. Blood spurted out like a burst hose. People started screaming. Some ran, some filmed on their phones. I froze. He turned his head and I saw his eyes. Empty. Burnt by something from the inside. He wasn't biting. He was tearing flesh with his teeth, chewing with the greed of a stray dog. I ran. A few minutes later, I was already at the dormitory. The door was open. Someone was screaming downstairs. I rushed up to the second floor and heard screams from Asher's room. It seemed he hadn't even managed to close the door. His wife was standing in the doorway, her face distorted, her hands covered in blood. She looked at me and took a step. I slammed the door. I propped it up with a wardrobe. Some of the neighbors were sobbing. Some were praying. Some were trying to call the police. But there was no network. The first night passed, as if in a fever. We sat in the dark, afraid to even move. Outside the window we heard screams, sirens, then silence. Eerie, deaf. Moscow was dying. Not in days. In hours. On the second day it became clear we would not be saved. No one would come. Not the police, not the ambulance, not the army. There were reruns on TV. The radio was silent. Someone tried to go out for food. Did not return. We began to organize. Me, Timur, Saeed, Bekmarod, everyone who remained. We shared water, cooked the remains of cereals, searched neighboring apartments. A day later we had a plan. Survive. Not just sit. Survive. And save the others. Because we heard a child crying in the neighboring house. Because someone was waving a towel from the neighboring balcony. Because somewhere beyond this street our people also lived. That's how the first idea was born, to go together. In turns, find food, find people. Gather everyone in one place. Start from scratch, but there was hell along the way. On the third day we went out, 5 of us. Only 3 came back. I was carrying a girl. She was hiding under a table in the kindergarten. Her mother was left there with the zombies in the hallway. I couldn't save her, but I could save the girl. Her name was Mary. We found an abandoned auto repair shop, spacious with gates that could be welded shut. There were tools, a generator, a basement. We dragged everyone there. A day later, 5 more. Then the woman from the drugstore, the old man from the kiosk. There were more and more people. And then one day I realized there are more than 20 of us. We speak different languages, pray to different gods, eat differently. But we are together. We share food. We guard each other at night. We bury the dead. I suggested a name. Earth Brotherhood. Because here, in this hell, we became brothers. Not by blood, but by choice. We are fellow countrymen in pain, in survival. We started painting a sign on the walls, a green circle with 2 intersecting lines. Those who saw it knew it was safe here. This is Brotherhood Earth. But a new horror was beginning in the city. We didn't know yet that the infected could mutate, that there would be people like the Swallower, the monster in the metro, that some survivors were worse than zombies. I'm still a cook, but now I cook soup not for the taste, but so that someone doesn't die of hunger. And I still remember my home, but my home now is these people. this auto repair shop, this green circle on the wall, and I'll tell you how it all happened. From the very beginning. They found us in the morning. We didn't know who they were. I was standing by the window, holding a piece of rebar, my stomach growling from hunger, my chest burning from lack of sleep. Silhouettes appeared at the gate. Not zombies. You can tell right away. They were moving carefully. One was walking ahead, the others were covering his flanks. That's how soldiers move. Or hunters. I whistled. Panic rose inside. Someone pressed themselves against the wall. Someone grabbed a crowbar. Said rushed to the entrance. We did not speak, only gestures. In recent days, we have learned that sound is an enemy. Rustling attracts the dead. I came out first, slowly, arms to the sides, chest straightened. Bek Murad walked next to me. He was always calm as a rock. The first of those who arrived raised his hands without taking out his weapon. He was tall in a worn bulletproof vest with a bandage on his forehead, a Kazakh as it turned out later. His name was Maksat. "We don't shoot, brother. We are just like you," he said. He had a voice as if he had been yelling in the market square all his life. There was weariness in his eyes and yet a spark of life. He gestured. There were 6 of them. They had left the northern district. They had lost more than half. They were left with ammunition but no food. They were looking for water. They saw our sign, a green circle on the wall. I beckoned him inside. Trust is not a currency that comes easily. But when you see a man carrying an old woman wrapped in a blanket, you know you are not dealing with a looter. They entered, one after another. The smell of food filled the air. We had broth bubbling away, onions, noodles, a little chicken, all we could gather. Maksat ate in silence. His friends ate slowly, as if apologizing for every bite. Only later did we hear their stories. One of them, Kurshed, was an ambulance driver. His partner had been gobbled up at the entrance to her apartment. The other was a student from Makachkala, Idar, very young. But there was not a drop of youth in his eyes. He had already buried his brother. I looked at them and realized how similar we were. We were thrown overboard, but we are swimming. That morning we divided the shifts. We reinforced the gate. We patched up the hole in the wall with the hood of a Volga. Our new brothers worked without asking. Some boiled water. Some kept watch on the roof. Some wrote down. Yes, we had a notebook where I kept track. Who came? Where from? Who I lost. Little Mehri was sitting on a stool and drawing green circles. Each had 2 crossed rays. I asked, "What is this?" She replied, "It's us. The people who glow." Then the storm came, a real one. The sky was covered in blackness. The wind howled like a beast. We covered the windows with boards, tried to hide in the basement. Leaves, trash, pieces of metal flew through the air like bullets. In the darkness, you could hear someone scratching outside. Then, blows, heavy, rhythmic. We thought zombies. But when we looked out in the morning, there was a man lying at the gate, alone, without shoes. His whole face was covered in ash. We let him in. He was not infected, but there was something different in his eyes. Panic, like a wild animal. He did not speak for a long time. Only when we gave him water did he exhale. They are running now. Everyone froze. Who? These infected. Yesterday we were in Julabino, me and my brother. He fell. I tried to lift him up, and suddenly, like a shadow, it flashed by. It bit. The teeth. They're not like before. They're fast. They're not dull. We exchanged glances. Maksat stood up first. He went to the roof to look into the distance. I followed him. From there, half the area was visible. Roofs, smoke, abandoned cars. Nothing alive. "We can't handle it if they start running," he said quietly. "We'll manage," I replied. Just not alone." He looked at me for a long time, and then he nodded. So we started building a chain, signals, maps, radio beacons, from old phones. We found survivors and directed them to us. We drew a symbol through the walls, a green circle. If you see it, follow the arrow. Inside, people. On the 7th day, a group from Marino arrived. Only children and grandmothers remained there. 2 people led them. One was a Tajik with a gold tooth, Mirali. The second was a Chechen, old as a stone, named Imran. They walked for 6 days. They lost 3, but they brought 22 survivors. We gave them water, food, warmth, and space. Our circle grew, and with it, fear, because something new had appeared in the northern part of Moscow, a zombie with burnt-out eyes, but with a voice. It called by name. It knew the words. I heard his voice twice, and each time a chill ran down my spine, as if someone had put a knife blade to my spine. The first time was at night. I was sitting by the window, listening to the wind. An ordinary evening. I could hear rustling sounds somewhere far away, distant groans, characteristic, muffled, already part of the background. And suddenly, a distinct, dry voice. Javlon! I jerked. I looked at Mary. She was asleep, wrapped in her jacket. Bekmurad raised his eyes but did not have time to say anything. I stood up and pressed myself against the window. Dark. No movement. Only this silence, as if the whole world held its breath. And again, Javlon, you are here. It was my mother's voice. I don't know how I didn't scream. I don't know how I didn't run out into the street, didn't rush to look for that deceptive whisper. I just clenched my teeth, felt the sweat dripping down my temple, and quietly retreated from the window. I didn't tell anyone in the morning, but the next day, Adar admitted that he heard his brother calling him, and Saeed admitted that his wife's voice was singing behind the door. Maksat got angry. It's a trap. Chemistry. Maybe they're evolving. Maybe they're just faking sounds. Don't even think about opening it. But I already knew that it wasn't just they. It was something else, and it knew our names. And we created a reconnaissance group. Me, Maksat, Adar, and Imran, old gray with eyes like steel. He said, I don't run, but I can shoot. And see, we went north towards Kuzminki. According to rumors, there was a camp there, a large one, an army one. We hoped to find medicine, maps, at least some information. The first kilometers were quiet. We passed courtyards, jumped over a fence. We passed dead houses, where curtains fluttered like white flags. It smelled of burning, mold, death. On Privolnaya Street they came across the first corpse. But it hadn't been eaten. It had been torn apart, as if someone had tried to extract the voice from it. I looked at Maksat. He nodded. We continued. There were 2 burnt-out trucks parked near the army depot. On the gates was a faded sign, "No trespassing." We entered through a hole in the fence. Inside, it was empty. Only someone was scratching in the corner. I raised my finger. Everyone froze. Step. Another step. Behind the boxes is a man, whole, young. He was holding a gun, looking askance. He was dressed in a uniform, but not an army one, a homemade one. Who are you? He asked. Survivors, I replied. He shook his head. Go away. It's dangerous here. He's here. Who? The voice. It's in the walls. It's in us. And then I heard. Through metal, through concrete, as if someone was whispering under my skin, Javlon, you left me. I stepped back. Adar grabbed his ears. Imran raised his gun. But the guy had already fallen, like a doll cut at the strings. He died without a sound. A creaking sound came from the depths of the warehouse. Maksat swore. We ran. Something came out of the black hangar, taller than a man. The body seemed to be molded from clay and bones. The head was bloated with a long mouth that had no teeth, only a tongue, nasty, thick, vibrating. It spoke. It spoke with my mother's voice, then with Adar's voice, then with Saeed's voice. Brat, you promised. We didn't shoot. We ran, all the way to Lyublino, without stopping. When we returned, there was panic in our camp. The children were crying. Mary was in tears. Someone had written in charcoal on the wall, "There is no salvation here." The caption, "Dogs in black." Who did this? I asked. Said pointed towards the east. Arti, they came from Textilshchiki. They said that we are a fraud, that our defense is a lie, that only they have the truth. Later we learned that they called themselves Anarchy, a gang, more than 50 people. They hunt for supplies, for people. They have their own order. Whoever is strong lives, the rest are food, sometimes literally. We realize that now the enemy is not only from outside, now, also inside the city. And that night, I didn't sleep again. I watched the fire smoldering in the barrel. I watched people hugging each other from the cold. And I watched old Imran sitting with a knife at his knees, whispering his prayer. And something new was brewing inside me. I wasn't just a survivor. I was a leader. Not by choice, by necessity. Tomorrow we will go to Textilshchiki, but not for revenge, for the future. We approached Textilshchiki at dawn. The city was in fog, gray, thick, like soggy cotton wool. There were 7 of us. Me, Maksat, Imran, Aidar, Bekmurad, Saeed, and Mirali. Each of us had a weapon. Some had a crowbar, some a kitchen knife. Imran had an old hunting shotgun. We weren't planning on starting a massacre, but we knew that they wouldn't let us leave just like that. On the way we passed a school. A child's jacket hung by the gate, swinging in the wind. There were marks on the walls. Red paint, the words, "Freedom or death." Law is a fist. Their lair was in a shopping center near the station. The skeleton of the building stuck out like a broken tooth. Inside, according to rumors, there were dozens of people. Their leader, nicknamed Stas Dlini. He met us at the entrance, tall, thin, with unnaturally white eyes. He was wearing a sheepskin coat, army pants, and boots without laces. In his hands was a sawed-off shotgun. His gaze was like a hawk's. "Who are you?" he asked, looking straight at me. "We are from Lublin. Earth Brotherhood," I answered. He chuckled. "See, what tenderness. And here we are simply living. Whoever disagrees goes to the dead." "We came for ours," said Maksat. "Yesterday you took 3 people from Volgogradka, a woman, a teenager, and an old man." Stas grinned, turned his back, and went inside. We followed him. Inside the center, everything was different. Extinguished shop windows, graffiti on the walls, zombie corpses hanging in the corners. As a warning, people were sitting by fires, drinking muddy water, apathy on their faces. Eyes did not look. They scanned. There were 3 prisoners in the hall of the former supermarket. An old man lay on his side, groaning. A woman with a broken nose. A teenager, tied up but not broken. He looked at us defiantly. Stas extended his hand. "They violated the borders. The supplies are ours. The survivors are ours. If you want to take them, pay." "We don't pay," I said. "Then," he snapped his fingers. 3 men appeared with bats. I took a step forward. "You can try to kill us, but then we'll come back. Not with 7, with 30. And everyone will know your name." He stopped. Silence fell between us. I saw his fingers move. He hesitated. And then Aidar threw the knife. Aimed. One of his guards fell, clutching his neck. We rushed into battle. Noise, shouts, blows. Imran fired at the ceiling. Mirali knocked the bat off one of the opponent's hands. I fought back with rebar, as if fighting for my soul. Stas tried to escape, but Maksat pinned him to the floor. "Enough!" I shouted. "Enough blood!" Everyone froze. I approached the prisoners. I freed them. The old man was shaking. The teenager clenched his fists. The woman nodded silently. I turned to the people who were looking at us from the shadows, from the depths of the hall. "If you want to live, come with us. We have food. We have protection. We have a place where a child can sleep without fear of being taken away at night." Someone stood up. Then another one. 10 minutes later, 8 people came out with us. Stas stayed. Broken. Not killed. Just broken. When we returned, we realized that the auto repair shop could no longer accommodate everyone. We started construction. An old warehouse in the neighboring block. Garages, containers, underground parking. People worked around the clock. In silence, in solidarity, someone cooked, someone welded nails, someone braided ropes, and everyone knew that this was no longer just survival. This was home. I wrote the words. We hung them above the entrance on a plywood board, handwritten with a black marker. We are the Earth Brotherhood. We do not divide by language. We do not divide by blood. We only share bread. Here, everyone is for everyone. Here, everyone is a brother. And under these words, each of us placed a palm print. On the third day after that, we found the entrance to the laboratory. It was a basement under a metro station, a rusty hatch covered with garbage. Adar found it by accident. He was chasing rats. We went down. Tunnels, wires, shields, old containers with hermetic lids, biohazard signs, and strange diagrams on the walls. Silhouettes of people, injection diagrams, mutation tables. There are test tube fragments on the floor, claw marks. And in one of the rooms, there is a glass sarcophagus, empty. It all started here, Maksat whispered. Do you think this is zero? Imran asked. I didn't answer. I only knew. Someone had broken out of here. And maybe they were still nearby. And up above, in the camp, the children were already playing in the sun, under the banners of the Earth Brotherhood. But the shadows underground grew longer and longer. That night I dreamed about him. I was standing in that very basement under the metro station, a laboratory. The light was flickering. The floor under my feet was sticky, as if smeared with blood. A silhouette was rising from a glass sarcophagus. Tall, thin, with an elongated skull and hands that looked like they were molded from veins. He was looking at me, not with his eyes, but with something else, as if he was scanning not my face, but my thoughts. He spoke, but his mouth did not move. You want to save them, Javlon? And who will save you? I woke up in a cold sweat. My heart was pounding like a hammer. I was sitting in my room in the old garage. Outside the window was a lilac dawn. Footsteps were heard downstairs. The guards were changing. I knew it wasn't just a dream. In the morning, we returned to the lab. 3 of us, me, Maksat, and Imran. We went down carefully. There was an old tablet on the floor, covered in dust. We took it. On the back was the inscription, RPB-14. Test subject, code 0. We brought it upstairs and connected it to the battery. The screen came to life and blinked. A menu appeared. The records opened. The folder was called Adaptation Protocol, Perimeter 4. We launched the video. The image was shaking. The camera was pointed at a man in medical clothing. He was looking into the lens, nervously fiddling with his collar. Today is the 13th day of testing the drug RPB-14. The sample has been implanted in the host. Stage 1 is successful. Increased regeneration, enhanced hearing and perception. Stage 2, he pauses. Failed. The subject shows signs of aggression, speaks in the voices of the employees, begins to imitate memories. We cannot stop the growth of the cellular mass. It is learning. The picture is torn. Maksat turns off the screen. Silence. He's not a virus. He's a carrier. And he remembered. Everything. I stood up. There was emptiness inside. Not fear, no. Something colder. A feeling that we had touched something we weren't supposed to touch. But 2 days later, Adar fainted. His temperature was high. His eyes were yellow. He was delirious. He called for his mother. Then he went silent. I sat next to him all night. He was shaking. We didn't know if it was a cold or the beginning. We couldn't take any risks. I pulled Maksat aside. If he starts, you have to be there. Not me. You. Understand? He nodded. Adar survived, but he never laughed again from that day on. In the South, they appeared. We called them simply purification, military, real ones, camouflage, helmets, radios. They had armored vehicles, they had mines, they had order and the task. We saw them for the first time when they stopped a caravan of migrants, those who were coming from the south, from Dzerzhinsky. 15 families, women, children, old people. They were driving carts, dragging backpacks, walking slowly, tiredly, but alive. Purification set up barriers. They checked people. They measured their temperatures. They examined their eyes. One boy started crying. He was scared. He had a fever. They took him away. He never returned. We were watching from cover. One of ours, Azamat, a former taxi driver, couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and went to them. He raised his hands. "Don't shoot. We are not sick. We are the Earth Brotherhood. We are peaceful." Shot. He fell before he could finish speaking. I pulled Adar away by the shoulder. Imran pressed me to the ground. We were silent, like stones. At night, we led those who remained of the caravan around, through the sewer hatch, through the creeping mud, through the corridors where the echo screams louder than words. 17 people. One of them was a girl. On her shoulder was a tattoo of the sun. She spoke Russian without an accent. Her name was Marta. She said, "It's like here, like in our camp, only everyone died there." Why? Because the commander got sick, and they didn't stop him. And he killed everyone. We started changing the rules. Now, everyone entering was quarantined for 3 days. No exceptions, even children, even the elderly. We created a separate zone, from buses and cargo containers, observation, isolation, warmth, food, safety, for everyone. It was cruel, but necessary. We couldn't take any more risks. We lost faith, but we gained discipline. And on the wall of the old warehouse, I drew something new, a symbol that looks like an eye. Inside it is a circle. Inside the circle is a flame. Caption, Earth Brotherhood. We see everything. We protect the living. On the 10th day after the appearance of the purification, a letter arrived. A real one. A paper one. Left in the helmet at our entrance. On it is a coat of arms, a seal, and a signature. Captain Sobol. There was one sentence. "We know about your camp. Your humanity is a threat. You have 3 days." And the signature. "For a world cleansed of rot." I gathered everyone. I went out to the people. "Marty, we were declared a threat. Not the virus, not the mutants, not the dead, but us. Silence. But we will not run. We will not fall to our knees. We survived hell. We gave each other names. We became a family. If they come, we will meet them. Not as fighters, as people." "Earth Brotherhood," someone shouted. "Earth Brotherhood," the others repeated. And that day, for the first time, I felt we are not a temporary refuge. We are a nation, a small one perhaps, but a living one. We knew they were coming. They were well armed. We were armed with kitchen knives and faith in each other. But we had a city. We knew its nooks and crannies, ventilation shafts, rooftops, subways. We studied every balcony, every attic. We turned Moscow into our home. And if the purification decided to invade, they would have to step not on ruins, but on living flesh. The first thing we did was evacuate the children. In a truck, lined from the inside with metal sheets, we took them to the old museum, where a bunker had been set up in the basement. The old people went with them. Marta volunteered to accompany them. "Are you sure?" I asked her. "I've seen camps die before, Javlon. This one won't die. I'll keep it safe." I squeezed her hand. She walked into the night with a lantern that had our symbol on it, a green circle. Some and the rest were preparing for battle. We mined the approaches to the warehouse. We hung noise traps, cans with ball bearings, metal lids, plastic bottles with nails. Adar sewed homemade shields from bulletproof vests and thick fabric. Imran set up firing positions. We made Molotov cocktails from everything we could find. Glass, gasoline, fabric. Maksat said, "This is not defense. This is Will. I nodded silently. He wasn't joking anymore. His eyes had darkened as if someone had turned off the light in him over the past few days. They came on the second day. 8 armored vehicles, camouflage, slogans, installation of loudspeakers. Earth Brotherhood, a voice rang out through the hoarseness of an old megaphone. You are the harbor of the infected. You have given shelter to the virus. You are subject to neutralization. I took the radio. We gave shelter to people. Pause. Ati, then die like people. The first rocket hit the roof of the warehouse. A corner collapsed, raising a cloud of dust. Children screamed. We had forgotten that 3 were still inside. Said rushed to pull them out. The second hit, right on the hood of the bus. The debris flew like grape shot. One of ours, Dilshad, fell dead. We opened fire. Everything we could. Everything we had. They shot from the roofs, threw Molotov cocktails, hit the armor with heavy metal. The battle turned into chaos. The cars were burning. The wounded were screaming. And in the middle of all this, Maksat's face. He walked across the yard as if it were a field with a pipe over his shoulder. And when one of the armored cars came at us head-on, he fired. A homemade mine, which went off below, turned the car over. Maksat laughed. Only later did I realize that it was his last laugh. A sniper from the tower hit him in the chest. He fell. I rushed to him. Javlon, he whispered. They didn't understand. What? We are not just a camp, we are a faith. He died in my arms, in the mud, under fire, among the rubble. Imran pulled me back. There was steel in his eyes. He led us forward until the last shot died down, until the last of the purification were gone. They hadn't won, but they hadn't lost either. They left us with blood-scorched streets and empty eyes. We buried Maksat under the linden tree, without a coffin, wrapped in his sheepskin coat. On the stone we wrote, Maksat, brother, Will. That same night I sat by the fire, alone. Everything was quiet. Only the fire crackled and the wind raged. Martha is back. All the children are fine. The old people too. But we have bad news. Speak. She took a radio out of her backpack and turned it on. On the frequency there was a weak, broken signal. Words broke through the noise. Sokolniki district. I repeat, Moscow. The experiment has gotten out of control. International command. The virus is not localized. New form. I looked at her. This American channel. Military. Encrypted. Intercepted via an old antenna. I closed my eyes and breathed in slowly. So, this is no longer just Moscow. She nodded. This is the whole world. No, that night I started writing. Not just a summary, not a plan. A manifesto for the future. For those who will find us if we disappear. For those who will ask, what was? Why? I called it Earth Brotherhood, the beginning. And every letter in it burned. On the 4th morning after the assault, we went to Sokolniki. We are me, Idar, Imran, Marta, and 2 newcomers, brothers Karim and Bakhtior, former electricians from Bukhara, calm as Buddhist monks but with hands that could assemble a walkie-talkie from a nail. They said they could boost the signal on the frequency from which that message had come. But to do that, they needed equipment. And it was in an old transformer booth behind the Sokolniki metro station. The way there lay through the green zone. Once upon a time there was a park there. Walking paths, cafes, carousels. Now it's a black forest. Overgrown trees, peeling benches, and a hum. Not the wind, not insects, but a hum coming from somewhere below, as if the earth itself was groaning. We walked in silence. We froze at every step. The air smelled of decay. Then bones. Lots of bones, small. Birds. Broken. Ader whispered, "There's something wrong here." We saw them first at the ruined fountain. 5 of them. They weren't walking. They were standing, hunched over, as if they'd forgotten what to do next. They were classic, rotting, with sunken cheeks, One had half his face missing. Another had his intestines dragging along the asphalt. Their skin was gray-green like mold. Their eyes were dead, but they felt us, turned around, slowly, as if emerging from oblivion. And off they went. We back away. Marta takes aim. Shot. 1 second. 2 zombies fall. But 3 continue walking, not slowing down. Imran throws a brick. 1 stumbles. Adar chops the machete at the leg. The zombie falls, continues crawling. I come up to him. I hit him on the head with a crowbar. The bones crunch. Silence. And suddenly, from behind, steps, branches cracking. We turn around. Dozens emerge from the trees. Slow, but relentless. They don't run. They press. They climb, stumbling, but they rise. One is knocked down by a fallen branch. He immediately rises, as if he feels no pain. Back! I shout. We run, through roots, trash, rubble. Imran covers, shoots while he has ammo. One zombie grabs Bakhtior by the leg. Pulls. I rush, hit him with a crowbar. His hand flies off. But his fingers are still clenched. We took refuge in a guard trailer near the transformer station. The door was iron. We locked ourselves in. It was dark inside. It smelled of mold and copper. There was knocking outside. They are knocking, non-stop, evenly, like rain, as if there were an infinite number of them, as if death itself was hitting the metal. We won't have time to amplify the signal, Kareem said, starting the generator. But we can listen to what's going on right now. There was a crackling sound, then a voice, muffled as if from a crypt. Unit department in square 329. Object 2, active. Repeat. Object 2, active. Order. Do not approach. Who is speaking? Asked Adar. Marta looked at me. Subject 2. If the first one escaped from the laboratory under the subway, where is the second one? Imran interrupted. That's not the question. The question is, who is the department? I suddenly realized we are not just surviving. We are stepping on the nerve of the center, on the nerve of the one who started all this. We waited until nightfall. It was quieter outside. We tore through the park, carving our way out, with a crowbar, a machete, our fists. One zombie bit Imran on the shoulder. Deep. We bandaged it. He was silent. It was only when we reached the base that he said, "If I start changing, don't think about it. Do it." Mono, there's an alarm at the base. There's a flare-up at the southern border. A fire. Looters tried to seize our warehouse, but they were repelled. The price, 3 dead. One of them was 12-year-old Shahzad, who was helping in the kitchen. We buried him next to Maksat. Marta silently placed the lamp by the hill. On the glass was scratched, "Brother, little, strong." That same evening, Adar brought a note. It was found at the entrance. The paper was old. The handwriting was military. The lines were straight and clear. "I know who you are. I served in the department. Left. A man remains. But not for long. Your goal is not to survive. Your goal is to understand. I will tell you everything. Approach Losiny Ostrov Station. Alone. Unarmed. At midnight. Signature. General Sobol." Imran clenches his teeth. He is starting to get a fever. We don't talk about it. But I see him looking at the sun, as if for the last time. And I'm thinking whether to go or not. Maybe that's where the truth lies. Or the end. I went out alone. No weapons. Just a radio. And a letter folded in 4 in my pocket. My head was buzzing. I knew it could be a trap, but I had to go. Not as a leader, as a man looking for an answer. Losiny Ostrov Station greeted me with complete silence. No zombies, no birds. The tree branches were motionless. The light from the lantern picked out the rails, roots, and torn up platforms. There was moss on the walls. The display showed frozen numbers. 1200. I went down the stairs. He waited in the tunnel. Tall, old. in military uniform but without insignia. On his face, a scar from his eye to his chin, hands behind his back, calm, like a predator before the jump. Javlon Rakhmatullayev, he said. I knew you would come. General Sobol? I asked. Once, yes. Now, just a witness. What? He looked into the darkness of the tunnel. Catastrophes. It all started in 2019, the Earth Purity Project. We were given a task to create an immunomodulator, something like a vaccine but with a side effect. Tissue regeneration, inspired by bat bites, self-healing. Natural mutations. He took out a flask, took a sip, offered it. I refused. At the second stage, things started to go wrong. Subject 0, our first test subject, started to show unexpected features. It imitated human behavior, voice, emotions. Later, other people's memories. We realized it absorbs not only the physical, but also the neural. And you let him go? I asked. He shook his head. We didn't let him out. He left on his own. Pause. And Object 2? Mutation. Independent, originated inside one of the closed colonies. We tried to localize. Too late. I stepped closer. Did you start all this? He looked me straight in the eyes. No, I just served. And when I realized what I was doing, I left. Destroyed the documents, removed the cameras. But everything was already in the people, in us, in Moscow. Why did you call me? Because you became the one who can stop it, not with a bullet, with understanding. People are not zombies, but they are not gods either. There is a chasm between. You build a bridge. He took out an envelope. This is a map. There are coordinates of Object 3. The last one. If it is not stopped, it will not be Moscow. It will be the whole Earth. He turned and walked into the darkness. And you? Undi, I shouted. I'm dying, Javlon, he said without turning around, from the truth. When I returned, Imran was no longer the same. He was lying on the bed under the sheet. His eyes were glassy. His skin was pale. He was breathing heavily. Adar was sitting next to him. Marta was holding his hand. Javlon, he whispered. I heard Maksat's voice. I nodded, a lump in my throat. If I start to change. He didn't finish. He grabbed me by the collar. Straight away, I squeezed his hand. I promise. At dawn, he screamed, an explosion of pain, foam on the lips, skin became blotchy, eyes rolled back. He began to break his fingers, himself, as if he wanted to break out of his body. Idar closed Mary's eyes. I came up, and he did it. One blow, to the heart. He died without transforming. And we burned him on the roof, in the rain, without words. Marta put his knife next to him, as a farewell. Niam Achi. We received a message that same day, on the old military frequency, a weak signal. Golyanovo region, a camp of the living, by the look of it. But they eat each other. I repeat, the survivors, cannibals. We left in a group of 6. We took only the bare necessities. I didn't know what was waiting for us there, but I felt that there was something else hidden behind this camp. A loss. Not bodies. Humanity. And at that moment I realized zombies are not the worst. Sometimes, worse are people. We reached Golyanovo in the evening, on foot, through broken yards. We passed overturned buses, garbage heaps, rusty garages. On the way we found a body. A woman. Her chest was torn. In her hand was a child's hat. No child. No traces. Only crows who were not afraid even when we came close. When we saw the camp, we first thought, a mistake. Gates made of slats along the perimeter. Tin cans on ropes. Homemade traps. Someone was cooking food by the fire. It seemed like ordinary survivors. But the smell, it wasn't like usual. Not gunpowder, not dead, but heavy, Swedish, like stewed meat. Marta was the first to guess. She walked up to the pot and looked inside. Then she slowly turned to me. This is not beef. We didn't panic. Adar approached one of the residents, a guy about 20 years old in a striped shirt with gray temples. Is this your camp? No. We just stayed, he replied. They feed you here, and they don't ask questions. He spoke like a man asleep, without intonation, without eyes within eyes. We spent less than an hour in the camp. The children ate from plastic cups, not looking up. An old man sat in the corner, chewing something, staring into space. A man with a bandaged leg walked past. There was a tattoo on the bandage. We had seen it before, on the body of a boy near Lassany Island. They didn't tell us anything. They didn't hold us. They just watched in silence. When we left, I turned around. No one was seeing us off. But there was a phrase scratched on the fence. Whoever stays, eats. We barely spoke on the way back. Words, smells, faces were spinning in my head. I felt something inside me breaking, not from fear, from the realization the apocalypse is not hordes of the dead. This is the disappearance of normality, step by step. Zombies were waiting for us on the outskirts of the park. Classic, about 10. We didn't make noise, didn't shoot. Adar distracted, Marta from behind. I hit them on the back of the head with a crowbar. No emotion, no hysteria. It became like brushing teeth. Killed, moved on. Rotten bodies, familiar smell. Slime underfoot. The usual. But something different happened that evening. When we were almost home, one of the zombies stopped, just stood, didn't walk, didn't growl, looked right at us. And suddenly he spoke, not with words, with sounds, as if he was repeating intonations, pauses, grinding, as if copying speech. And then Marta whispered, "This is Sobel's voice." The zombie stretched out its neck, made a creaking sound. Then it suddenly lunged, but not at us, but back. It hid behind the wall. The others froze, too. It was as if something was commanding them. Adar spat. They are now under someone's control. Later at the camp, we wrote down on paper, Subject 3, not infected, smart. Affects zombies, uses speech, can be nearby. One, I didn't sleep. I sat on the roof watching the smoke rise from the fires. In my head, a cannibal camp, a sable, a girl with a cup, a zombie with a voice, a rotting border between a human and something else. Mary came over and sat down next to me. Are you angry? No, I said. Then why don't you talk? Because speaking is scarier than remaining silent. She nodded as if she understood. Then she whispered, even if you become like them, I will still love you. And she left. And I stayed. And I realized Earth Brotherhood is not about fighting zombies. It's about the struggle to be human when no one else around you wants to be human. Subject 3 was not human, not a zombie. He was the void into which we both looked, and so were we. The signal grew stronger on the 10th day. The radio receiver assembled by Kareem from the remains of military equipment began to hiss. At one point it became clear. Can you hear me? Station. I see you. The voice was cold. No accent, no emotion. Like a person who had long forgotten how to speak, but did so out of habit. There was no life in it, and no death. Adar wrote down the frequency. We tried to get feedback, 0, only hissing. But every evening, the same voice. It did not call, it watched, as if eavesdropping on the camp, repeating fragments of other people's phrases, words spoken during the day. Sometimes, a whisper heard only by one person. Satam. Nobody slept peacefully. Mary woke up in tears, muttering that Mama is calling. The old men began to argue about which bunker to move to. Marta withdrew into herself. Adar became suspicious. He kept track of supplies and once accused Bekmarad of stealing. He silently turned away. The next day, Bekmarad was gone. We found him by the fence. His neck was broken. There were no tracks or blood nearby, just 2 bare footprints. Not zombies, human, but not ours. I called a council. It's simple. Either we start living according to a strict schedule, or we fall apart. Decided. No one leaves the perimeter alone. Every night there are at least 3 people on duty. Testing for infections is mandatory. Anyone who hears the voice reports. Silence. Then a nod. Then another. Gradually, they accepted. Life in the camp has been reduced to biological rituals. Water on schedule, food in turns, lots of work, not enough fences. Dogs tore the netting in the south. It took 3 days to patch it up. The zombies there seem to breathe faster now, not in a hurry, just waiting. They are always waiting. And then the radio went silent. 3 days, silence, and we exhaled. Object 3 disappeared, or left, or found others. But this was the beginning of another problem. People started dying, not from bites, from weakness. Before we knew it, we were out of sulfur, then antibiotics, then charcoal. One by one, people started coughing, fever, fatigue. We couldn't tell the difference between illness and infection. An entire sector had to be isolated. There were 7 there. Mary, too. I didn't eat. I sat by the door where she slept. Sometimes I heard her calling. Then she stopped calling. 2 days later, the door was opened. Of the 7, 2 remained. Mary is among them. She didn't speak. She just looked at me, and I realized the girl who drew green circles was gone. The survivor remained. One morning, Adar disappeared. We found him at the old transformer booth. He was sitting by the wall. In front of him was a dictaphone. On the tape was the voice of Object 3. I was here, Javlon. You heard. Now you know. I am not a virus. I am an echo. You are all just a memory. I burned the film. Adar was buried silently, without words, without a plaque. People didn't want to know what he heard. And then, winter came. Real. Snow fell on the streets of the dead city. Roofs were covered. There was almost no firewood left. We burned furniture, books, old doors. People hid under blankets. Some died in their sleep. But the zombies did not sleep. They walked. In gray. In white. There were more and more of them. And they became more silent. It was as if someone had ordered them to wait. Samapordini. The Object 3 never returned, but we knew it was out there somewhere. Maybe it had simply become a net, or merged with the wind. Maybe it had taken up residence in us. We didn't look for him anymore. We lived, every day, water, food, security, whispers. We called it life. But, in essence, it was a struggle for the border between what could still be called human and what had already gone beyond the edge. And one day I woke up, went outside, and realized zombies are standing on the horizon, silently, hundreds of figures in the snow, just watching. I looked back, and I realized that they were not interested in us. We have become the same, slowly rotting, simply inside. Okay, I'll continue the story from the point where the story became not a fight with a monster, but a slow rotting inside the camp, in silence and cold. The new cycle will be realistic, Dark, socially intense. No heroism, only survival. Winter came to the camp without a knock. The snow fell without stopping. At first it was beautiful. Then it was suffocating. The roofs began to collapse. The metal walls of the containers froze. The blankets did not help. The children did not laugh anymore. They only coughed. I stood by the map. On it were our camp, zones, routes, all in pencil, all with a trembling hand. Behind me were 23, the rest of the 80. We couldn't stand it. We had no food, no salt, no coal, and most importantly, there was no point in us staying. Martha spoke first. "We need to leave, to the south." "Where to?" Sed asked. "Where food grows, where it's not -20, where there is soil, water, at least fish." I remained silent. Adar would have supported her, if he were alive. The people waited for my word. But I was no longer the leader. I was part of the furniture, part of the cold, part of the camp. Mary held my hand. She had grown in these months. Silent, stiff. She said quietly, "Let's leave. That's all." We spent a week getting ready. We took down walls. We got out old blankets. We rolled 2 trucks out of the snow. Both half dead, but they started up. Kareem made heaters out of gasoline and lamps. We put together a column, and they left. Not like an army, not like refugees. Like everything that's left. On the way, we met 3 looters, frozen. One died before our eyes. He just stood up and didn't go. Another wanted to steal our axe. We didn't beat him. We just took his clothes and sent him on his way. He chose loneliness himself. Zombies have become rarer, but more evil. They didn't come in a crowd. They hid. One of them, under the snow. He crawled out when we were sleeping. He took a girl. I don't remember her name. I think it was Lola. Her mother tried to run after him. We didn't let her. We were no longer sentimental. On the 6th day, the column reached a farm, a ruin. But there was a barn. In it were live chickens. 3 of them, real ones. Their feathers were yellow, as if there was hope left in them. We decided to stop. The camp in the south has become different. There was no formation. There were no walls, just a circle of cars and fires. We lived by the day. One day, mining. One day, repairs. One day, sitting quietly by the fire. People started talking again. About the past. Not about the future. About what was. Marta admitted that before everything she worked in the office on Taganka. Kareem dreamed of becoming a shop teacher. Said was an electrician. I became a cook again. Boiled water with grass. Fried leftover meat. Distributed. Without words. One night Mary said, "We don't die. We just change. Some into what? In other people." One morning, a man approached the camp. Barefoot, in a raincoat, no zombies, no backpack. He stood at the border and raised his hands. "My name is Nariman. I am from Volgograd. There are survivors there. Many. We have a power plant. We have built greenhouses. We are looking for people like you." We didn't believe it, but he showed a map. He showed a photo. On the paper, faces, laughing, with spoons, with sunlight. No, we didn't go right away. We argued. Marta said, "It's a trap." Kareem believed. Said hesitated. I didn't know. I wasn't making decisions anymore. I just listened to the wind scraping against the awning. But that night the zombies came for the last time. 7 figures, all without eyes, without fingers, frozen, but walking. We killed them, without a sound, without panic. Then they burned them. Not because they had to, because they didn't want them lying around. A week later, we went for Nariman, on foot, in a column, not a saved, not as chosen, and as people who still hold on to something. Some for the past, some for the child, some for the chicken that suddenly laid an egg, and I held Mary's hand. And for the fact that she still believes that a person is not just a surviving body. We walked for a long time, through ruined villages, forests, frozen fields, across bridges with hands sticking out of the water, through tunnels where we walked in silence, with our mouths closed, knowing that these people were listening. Nariman led us confidently. He was not in a hurry. He did not lose his way. Sometimes he spoke on the radio. Some answered. Some did not. We followed the voice like blind men. At night we heard howling. Not animals. Zombie. Those who howled not because they were hungry, but because they had lost something. 21 days later we approached Volgograd. Nariman stopped. He showed us from above. A camp across the river, an old grain elevator, a circle of concrete blocks, watchtowers, generators, solar panels, and, most importantly, a vegetable garden. A real one. People were weeding cabbage. They were laughing. Children were playing with wooden toys. "We're home," he said. We believed. They let us in. They hugged her. They fed her. They took her to warm rooms. Mekri was in tears. Marta was in tears too. Only I remained silent, because I knew this doesn't happen. A week later it became clear. We are not part of them. We are guests. We were not allowed to work. We were not allowed to use the radios. We ate, but did not cook. We watched, but did not control. We were observed. Mary overheard a conversation during the night. Nariman was talking to someone on the radio. Yes, they are trusting. Yes, 16 people, not infected, for now. Bye? In the morning we tried to leave. They didn't give it to us. The fence was closed. The guard said, "The order is to detain until checking. Anyone who doesn't obey is sent to the bunker." Bunker. That's the word. That place where they don't check, they bury. We left at night, secretly, through the drain pipe found by Saeed, through the stinking shaft, through concrete and mud. One of ours, Karim, stayed behind. He didn't make it in time. We heard him calling us. Then a scream, then silence. We're on the road again. Where to? Back. To the north, to Moscow. Where there is snow. Where there is rot. Where there are zombies. Where is our camp? Even if only rust and memory remain of it. We are not heroes. We were not saved. We came back because the world doesn't accept people like us. He wants subordinates, clean, silent ones, and we are dirty, alive, dangerous with our freedom. When we returned, the camp was empty. The doors are open. The fence is broken. There are old footprints in the snow. No bodies, no blood, no zombies. Just emptiness. We came in, made a fire, sat down quietly, and we started from scratch. Sometimes zombies come to the perimeter. Just look. Don't go. We don't shoot. We're just waiting. Maybe they forgot who they were. Or maybe we ourselves are almost like that. In the evenings I write in a notebook. It's already the 6th one. About how we walked, how we returned, how it all ended. But not by death. Worse. Understanding that we are always here. That Earth Brotherhood is not a camp. This is the remainder. The rest of the world where people don't survive but simply don't die.